Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to all the devotees for this exclusive question answer session. I already have some questions. You may post more questions on the live chat. I'll try to answer as many as possible in the next 1 hour. Here's the first question for today. How to get strength to apply the knowledge? Sometimes we know it is wrong. We have the knowledge, but still we commit wrong actions. Kindly guide. Now, there is a similar question asked by Arjuna in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna's question is, I'll read the question by Arjuna. Third chapter, 36th verse in the Bhagavad-gita, Arjuna's question is, Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, addressing Krishna as Varshneya, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Arjuna's question is very interesting. He's telling, sometimes we feel as if we are forced to do something wrong or sinful, even though we don't want to do sinful activity and we know certain actions are sinful. Still, it seems like there is some force which is pushing us to do the sinful activity. So what is Krishna's reply? Krishna straight away says, the cause for this is lust. It is lust. What is lust? Lust is a strong desire to enjoy sense gratification, personal sense gratification. That's called lust, kama, the force of kama. In the material existence, practically everyone is having these contaminations in the heart, 6 contaminations: kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. Kama means lust. Lust means the strong desire to enjoy our own senses, somehow or the other. And krodha is anger. Anger is another type of sense gratification. When my senses are not satisfied by some action I perform, then I become angry. I become angry. Frustration. It is frustration of all sense gratification. We become angry. Then kama, krodha, lobha. Lobha is greed. If I am successful in getting some sense gratification, then I want more without limitation. That's called greed. If I have some possessions and I'm able to enjoy those possessions, then I want more of those possessions, more and more without limitation. That's called lobha, greed. No limit to how much one may desire to possess or desire to enjoy or desire to do something without any limitation. That's called lobha, greed. And mada. Mada is intoxicated. One becomes intoxicated. As one goes on indulging in sense enjoyment, or one attains success in some activities repeatedly, then one becomes intoxicated Very, very proud, very arrogant, very proud. It's basically pride only. Intoxicated by pride, intoxicated by success, intoxicated by wealth. Mada. Matsarya. No, one more is moha. Moha is illusion. In the material existence, under the influence of the illusory energy, we are always in illusion. We do not know we are not the body. We always act, think, feel, willing. Everything is based on the misunderstanding or the wrong understanding I'm the body. It's due to the influence of the illusion that I'm thinking I'm the body. Every person, every conditioned soul thinks like that. And we forget we are spirit soul. We forget our spiritual nature. That's also influence of illusion. So like this. Then Matsarya, enviousness. Enviousness is, I don't have something which somebody else has got. And I want it. So it could be something very insignificant, could be something very, very not so important, but somehow I cannot tolerate somebody else having something which I don't have. This is called Matsarya or enviousness, envious of others. So like this, we are afflicted by these contaminations, and due to this contamination, even though we don't want to do wrong things, we are forced to do wrong things. Even though we have knowledge something is wrong, we cannot avoid doing wrong things. So what is the solution for this? We have to purify our heart. And what is the best way of purifying our heart? By chanting Hare Krishna and doing devotional service of other varieties. Accepting prasadam, worshipping Krishna, hearing Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavatam, spiritual discourses, like this. So all this will purify our heart. Until our heart is purified, the force of lust, the force of anger, the force of greed cannot be easily overcome. You cannot overcome the forces of the contaminations in the heart. So the only way is to purify the heart. And the most effective and powerful way of purifying the heart is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and hear this transcendental sound with attention. And then we'll be able to purify our heart. Once our heart is pure, we will not be forced by material nature to do wrong things. What is wrong, we will not do. We'll do only the right things. Next question. In the pastime of Lord Krishna wanting to kill Maya Danava, why did Arjuna retaliate against the Lord and save a demon? Okay, this particular point is mentioned in the first canto, 15th chapter, 9th verse, that Arjuna is recollecting how by Krishna's grace he was able to do so many wonderful things. So he's also recollecting that this Maya Danava, he was an inhabitant of the Khandava forest. And when the Khandava forest was set on fire, this Maya Danava would have been destroyed by that fire. But he took shelter of Arjuna, and Arjuna saved his life. So it is said here that by Srila Prabhupada, that devotees of the Supreme Lord Krishna are more merciful than Krishna himself. And therefore, in devotional service, mercy of a devotee is more valuable than the mercy of the Lord. Here, devotee means pure devotee. So it is explained in the case of Maya Danava that both the fire and Lord Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra were chasing this Maya Danava to kill him. But when Maya Danava saw that his life was in danger and he could not escape, he went to Arjuna and sought protection from Arjuna. Please save me, save my life. So Arjuna actually gave shelter. And as soon as Krishna saw Arjuna is giving shelter to this Maya Danava, because Arjuna is Krishna's devotee, pure devotee. So immediately Krishna actually withdrew the Sudarshan Chakra. And Arjuna was able to save that demon Maya Danava both from the fire and the Supreme Lord Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra. Now, why did Arjuna retaliate against the Lord? If that is the question, Arjuna is not retaliating against Krishna. Arjuna is just showing his compassion upon somebody whose life is in danger. Even if somebody is to be punished by the Lord, if such a person who's punishable by the Lord, if he takes shelter of a devotee of the Supreme Lord, then by the compassion of the devotee, that person who's supposed to suffer punishment may be saved from that. May be saved from that. So it is always good for somebody to accept or to take shelter of a devotee before one actually surrenders to Krishna or takes shelter of Krishna. The mercy of the devotee is more valuable than the mercy of the Lord in devotional service. This we have to remember. So Krishna wanted to teach this principle. That's why this pastime by Krishna. Next question. Are the convictions related to spiritual truths on a material or spiritual platform? Now, spiritual truths, if somebody is convinced, till they are on the material platform, their existence is on a material platform because their heart is contaminated by material desires, then their conviction is on the material platform only. But it doesn't matter whether the conviction related to spiritual truths are on the material platform or spiritual platform, because we generally live our life based on our convictions. So even if the conviction is on a material platform, if it is a spiritual truth, it is beneficial for us. Ultimately, it is beneficial for us. So conviction is required, it is important, and if it is being convinced about spiritual truths, that is very, 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 very valuable for anybody. So it doesn't matter whether it is on material or spiritual platform. Our existence itself will be on spiritual platform when we become completely purified of all material contamination. Then we are on the spiritual platform. But convictions on the spiritual platform, we should understand, is permanent conviction. It's not a temporary conviction. It cannot be replaced with something else opposite. Not possible. Convictions on the spiritual platform are eternal convictions, are not replaced. But on the material platform, our convictions keep changing. Just like when we were children, we used to play with toys and we were so attached. And if somebody tries to tell us or convince us that it's not very good to play with toys, instead you should seriously study, we would become angry, we would argue, we would throw tantrums. But as we grow up and mature, our convictions change. Our childish convictions or our previous convictions have changed. As we become enlightened, as we become mature, as we become sober, our convictions change. But that is on the material platform. On the spiritual platform, convictions are related to only spiritual truths. There is no conviction based on some material misunderstanding. No. That is not possible on the spiritual platform. So on the spiritual platform, convictions are permanent and they are not replaced by any other convictions which are opposite of spiritual truths. Now, next question. India has won many medals in Commonwealth Games 2022. Has karma played any role in this? In any material activity, karma is the basis for all material activities. Success or failure is dependent on karma. But karma is one of the factors. Karma is one of the factors. As you would have heard from the Bhagavad-gita 18th chapter, Krishna says there are 5 factors for successful accomplishment of any action. Adhishtanam tatha karta karanam cha prathak vidam vividascha prathak cheshta daivam evatra pancham. There are 5 factors for successful accomplishment of an action: the place of action, the performer, and the instrument senses, and the endeavor, and finally the super soul. The super soul sanctions any activity only if the karma, for a non-devotee, only if the karma is there for the devotee, for the non-devotee, based on karma. And the other factors are also required for successful accomplishment of the action. Just like the person who is the performer of the activity should properly put the endeavor to do the activity. There has to be endeavor. Cannot sit back and simply wish that it happens somehow. No. They have to endeavor. Their cheshta is required. Then the proper place. Place means the starting conditions for executing the action. The initial conditions have to be proper. And then the performer must be there. Nothing happens without a performer. No material activity happens without a doer, without a performer of the activity. So there should be a performer. There should be proper initial conditions. Then there has to be endeavor by the performer. And then the proper instruments are required for carrying out. Proper instruments are required. That means if somebody is using their senses, the senses should be properly utilized, means the skill should be there in utilizing the senses. Just like an artist is drawing with his hand, painting with his hand. So the hand is the instrument, but the training should have been given to the hand, the practice, the skill, the way to actually use the paint brush or the instrument for drawing, the pencil or whatever. So that is also, the instruments are also important. So all of these have got a role. So definitely karma has a role in this any material activity, including playing some games. Yes, karma has a role. Next question. How should we celebrate Krishna Janmashtami at home? What are the activities we should do on this day? There is a special video that is made if you visit ISKCON Bangalore website. How to celebrate Krishna Janmashtami at home. There is a special video made. The most important activity to celebrate Krishna Janmashtami at home is to chant Hare Krishna in front of a picture of Krishna or a deity of Krishna on that day. And then perform Krishna Kirtan, Krishna Bhajan. And then perform puja for Krishna. Performing puja, very simple way, is to offer flowers, offer incense, offer a lamp, dhupa, deepa, pushpa, the naivedya, prepare some special items and offer to Krishna and accept that after the puja as prasadam. Like this, different activities at home you can do, which we anyway do in the temple. So that specific recommendations are there. You can do, if you have a deity, you can do abhishek for Krishna. Or if you just have a picture, you can worship the picture of Krishna. Then you can offer prayers to Krishna. Where are the prayers? The best prayer is chanting Hare Krishna. Or you can offer prayers offered by great devotees, which are given in the Bhagavatam, which are given in the Bhagavad-gita, Arjuna's prayers to Krishna in the 11th chapter, verses 36 to 45. So like this, there are different ways of celebrating, different activities for celebrating Janmashtami at home. And all these activities are listed in that video. Kindly go through that video. In Bhagavatam 2.4.3, Parikshit Maharaj renounced all fruitive activities like acts of religion, economic development, and sense gratification. What is meant by religion being a part of fruitive activities? Good question. Here, when it says dharma, artha, kama, moksha, the four purusharthas, they are called the goals of a civilized human being as given in the scriptures. Dharma refers to following the principles, religious principles as given in the scriptures. Following the religious principles as given in the scriptures, that's called dharma. Acts of religion. Now, generally for a beginner in the field of following religious principles, the scriptures are recommending different types of religious activities meant for satisfying one's material desires in a pious way. People generally in this material world have so many different kinds of material desires. So for satisfying those desires, the scriptures recommend how one can satisfy those desires in a pious way without doing any sinful activity, without committing sin. Because sinful way somebody tries to satisfy their desire, they're going to be punished by the laws of nature. They're going to suffer. And our scriptures explain all our suffering at the present moment, whatever we are undergoing, is due to our past sinful activities which we have committed. So suffering is only because of my own past sinful activities and no other reason. There is no other cause. There is no other reason. That's a fact. So We don't want, scriptures warn us, don't do anything sinful. So then how do I satisfy my desires without doing sinful activity? So there are pious ways of doing it, and that's called acts of religion or dharma. Now, if one becomes a little advanced or hears from a pure devotee, what should be the goal of life? So the Bhagavatam teaches us sense gratification should never be the goal of life, should never be the goal of doing any material, any activity, should not be the goal of practicing religion, should not be the goal. Kamasya, what is that? Dharmasya hi apavargyasya nartho arthayopakalpate. Narthasya dharmaikantasya kamo labhayi smritaha. Neither artha nor kama, neither economic development or sense gratification should be the goal of dharma. Dharma is meant for ultimate liberation, practice of dharma, practice of religious principles. So there are lower and higher religious principles according to the situation of the person. So Bhagavatam recommends the highest religious principle is to render devotional service to Krishna without expectation of any material benefit and without expectation of impersonal liberation. Without any expectations. Simply one should do devotional service to please Krishna for his pleasure. And that way what happens? We become completely purified in our heart of all material contamination. And very quickly we make advancement to get out of material existence and come to the spiritual platform. Immediately, when you come to the spiritual platform, immediately we experience relief from all material miseries. No more material miseries, no more material suffering. So that is what the Bhagavatam is recommending. So when it is said, Parikshit renounced all fruitive activities like acts of religion, he gave up all those recommendations in the scriptures which are meant for fulfilling material desires. Just like, I want a lot of wealth. I want to have nice family. I want to be successful in my business. I want to get married to a beautiful wife. Any type of material desires. Actually, there are ways that are suggested in the scriptures how one can satisfy them, but that is not the real purpose of executing religious principles. Religious principles are necessary to be followed, but which religious principle is the one we should actually follow? Because there are many religious principles mentioned in the scriptures. So we should give up all those religious principles which are mentioned for fulfilling material desires. And that is what Parikshit Maharaj did. Next question, is religion independent of Krishna consciousness? Religion means the laws of God. Religion means the laws of God. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranita is the definition of dharma in the Bhagavatam. So religion cannot be independent of Krishna consciousness. If there is something called religion which is independent of Krishna consciousness, there is a concocted religion. It's a man-made religion. And that's not going to help any person. A man-made religion will not give any spiritual benefit, will not give any spiritual advancement. It will simply be resulting in material reactions, which are very dangerous because it bind us to the material world and continue our suffering in this material world, the miseries of material existence. Next question, who is Suta Goswami and Shukadeva Goswami? Okay, Shukadeva Goswami is the son of Vyasadeva, who actually was taught the Bhagavatam by Vyasadeva. Shukadeva Goswami learned the Bhagavatam from Vyasadeva, and later on he narrated or spoke the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. When Parikshit Maharaj decided to renounce his kingdom and prepare for death, 7 days time he had because of a curse by a Brahmana boy. So when Parikshit Maharaj decided to retire from his kingdom and sit down in a holy place to prepare for facing death, Shukadeva Goswami walked into that assembly by the arrangement of Krishna, and Shukadeva Goswami was received very nicely by Parikshit Maharaj, and he spoke the Bhagavatam to help Parikshit prepare his consciousness to face death, Krishna consciousness, to become Krishna conscious before facing death. Suta Goswami is called Ugrashrava Suta. He is the son of Romaharshana Suta. Romaharshana Suta is one of the disciples of Veda Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. So this Suta Goswami, his full name is Ugrashrava Suta. He spoke the Bhagavatam, which he heard from Shukadeva Goswami when Shukadeva Goswami was speaking Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So Ugrashrava Suta was also in that assembly of saintly persons. So Ugrashrava Suta, also known as Suta Goswami, heard the Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami, and second time this Suta Goswami narrated the Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya. Some sages gathered in Naimisharanya to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice for the welfare of the people of this world. And Suta Goswami was selected by the sages to answer their questions. So Suta Goswami, in reply to the questions asked by the sages of Naimisharanya, he decided to speak the Bhagavatam. And therefore, the Bhagavatam was spoken second time by Suta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya. First time Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj and the other assembled saintly persons in that Parikshit assembly. Next question. Please explain the feelings during chanting, whether they are natural coming or we should develop. Please clarify. Now, to have some feeling is natural. Some feeling, whether during chanting or even otherwise while doing any activity. Feelings will be there. But during chanting, we should have feeling for Krishna. Because chanting is an activity which should be done as an offering of devotional service to Krishna. To do that properly, we have to have a feeling for Krishna. What feeling? Feeling of gratitude to Krishna, feeling of devotion to Krishna, like that. So that those feelings, the appropriate feelings with which we should do this devotional service or even chanting Hare Krishna, those feelings are developed by practicing devotional service itself. Then the proper feelings are developed in a devotee. Otherwise, our feelings are based on so many material happenings. They are based on some thoughts. They are based on some remembrances of some past experiences, good or bad. So those feelings are not the proper feelings when we are engaged in devotional service. To offer devotional service to Krishna, we should have the appropriate feelings. Feelings of devotion to Krishna. So those feelings, feelings of devotion to Krishna are developed by our practice of devotional service itself according to the rules and regulations. So it takes some time to develop proper feelings for doing devotional service. and they are automatically developed when we practice sadhana bhakti according to rules and regulations under the guidance of a spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master. Next question. Is it true that in Satya Yuga we are allowed to travel in space and Vaikuntha? No, there is no such thing that Satya Yuga you can travel and other yugas you can't travel. There is no such thing. Anybody who has to travel in space has to have the siddhi. It's a siddhi, a material perfection which is possible for a human being who practices Ashtanga Yoga and perfects a certain type of practice of meditation according to Ashtanga Yoga system. Then they develop different kinds of perfections, and one of them is the ability to travel in space, either using some vehicle or without a vehicle, even without a vehicle. So thus siddhis somebody develops, then they can travel in space. And the question is whether somebody can travel to Vaikuntha by siddhi. No, that's not possible. One cannot penetrate the coverings of the universe until one becomes a pure devotee and is delivered by Krishna from this material existence. One is able to get out of material existence by Krishna arranging for deliverance. And that happens only for pure devotees, not for others. So nobody can travel to Vaikuntha who is a conditioned soul in this material world. And even liberated souls, if they are non-devotees, they can go only to the spiritual sky. But unless one is a devotee, one cannot enter the spiritual planets. Vaikuntha Loka, one cannot enter. Next question. I don't want to marry as I consider Krishna as my husband and cannot imagine anybody else in that position. I've answered this question. I don't know why this question is repeated. I've answered this question already. There is no compulsion for anybody to marry in Krishna consciousness. There is no compulsion. No. But the scriptures guidance for a woman is to be under protection of a suitable guardian. So the natural guardians for a woman, when she's a young girl, her natural guardian is her father. And for a married woman, natural guardian, in the middle age, a woman is supposed to get married to a suitable husband, and husband is a natural guardian. And in old age, the natural guardian is the grown-up son or some other guardians. So a woman is, according to the scriptural directions, always supposed to be under protection of a proper guardian. But if somebody doesn't want to get married and still want to practice devotional service, one should still have some guardian other than the husband. Some other guardian one should have. Next question. Why gopis were living in separation? Why couldn't they go to Mathura and meet Krishna if they left everything in their life to see Krishna at night when Rasa dance took place? Then what was stopping them at present? Okay. Now, when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura, it is described that this is a Leela of Krishna in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no separation from Krishna for the gopis or for any devotee, not only gopis, any devotee. in the spiritual world, everybody is engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna in Goloka Vrindavana, or in Dwaraka, or in Mathura, or in Vaikuntha. Everyone is a devotee, other than the Supreme Lord. Everyone else is a devotee. And all the devotees are simply engaged always in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And they are continuously engaged like that. And then Supreme Lord also reciprocates their service and is personally reciprocating with each devotee individually. So that is the special thing about the spiritual world. In the material world, when Krishna incarnates, then he performs his pastimes to attract the conditioned souls to prepare themselves through devotional service to go back to Krishna in the spiritual world. So when Krishna performed this pastimes in the material world when he incarnated 5,000 years back, this one Leela he performed that he left Vrindavan and went away to Mathura. But in the spiritual world, Mathura Dham also Krishna is there. Vrindavan Dham also is there. Dwarka Dham also is there. Simultaneously he is there everywhere in the spiritual world. So that we cannot conceive in our material existence, in our material condition, we cannot understand that. But the fact is Krishna is always present for each devotee individually, according to their relationship, according to their desire to serve him, according to their position, etc., etc. So now, when the Leela happened in the earth planet 5,000 years back in this material world, when Krishna went to Mathura, why didn't the Gopis also go with him to Mathura to see Krishna? Now, the Gopis, they are very much attached to Krishna and they want to serve Krishna in Vrindavan. Please understand this point. They want to serve Krishna in Vrindavan. Because Krishna's mood in Vrindavan is different. Krishna's mood in Mathura is different. Krishna's mood in Dwaraka is different. And in the Vaikuntha Loka also it is Krishna only in the form of Narayana. So his mood in Vaikuntha is also different. So therefore, according to the devotee's specific relationship with Krishna, the devotee is situated either in Vrindavan or in Mathura or in Dwaraka or even in Hastinapura, any place. The devotee is situated in a particular place according to the devotee's relationship and the desire to serve Krishna. In the particular form of Krishna, they are engaged in devotional service. So this is a very elaborate subject matter about our relationship with Krishna and the varieties of relationship and corresponding understanding of how Krishna accommodates the desires, how he satisfies, etc. It's a very elaborate subject. But in brief to tell why the Gopis did not leave Vrindavan and go to Mathura, because they don't want to leave Vrindavan. They want to serve Krishna in Vrindavan. And Krishna always is in Vrindavan in his form as Shama Sundara. He's always there for the Gopis as Shama Sundara form in Vrindavan, eternally present. So for the Gopis, there is no separation from Krishna. And also in the earthly pastime, when Krishna performed, leaving Vrindavan and going to Mathura, the Gopis always kept Krishna in their heart. And in that way, they were always Krishna conscious. Even though Krishna was not present, Krishna in his one form, he was not present. He went away to Mathura. But in his Bhava Rupa, in the form of Krishna being present in the heart of the devotees. So that Krishna actually was always with the inhabitants of Vrindavan and the Gopis and the cowherd boys, etc. Next question. Jarasandha, being a demon, never refused charity to any Brahmana and performed many sacrifices also. How to understand this? Now, please understand the difference between demoniac nature and influence of the three gunas, sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna, and combined influence. Now, in the Bhagavad-gita, the 14th chapter describes the influence of the three gunas on different people, how it influences. And the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita describes the divine and demoniac nature of different people. So, a demoniac natured person is demoniac natured because of that particular person's desire to live in a particular way, to enjoy in a particular way, to lord over the material nature in a particular way, etc., etc. So, if somebody is demoniac nature like Jarasandha, then they will not follow the scriptures. They will give trouble unnecessarily to saintly persons. They will be always inimical towards the Supreme Lord Vishnu and Vaishnavas, the pure devotees of Vishnu. They'll always be inimical. So these are characteristic traits of a person who is demoniac nature. Now, the influence of the sattva guna makes a person very charitable to Brahmana. The influence of rajoguna makes a person work very, very hard for sense gratification. The influence of tamoguna makes a person very, very lazy, dull, like that. So the influence of the gunas is there on demonic natured persons in this material world, and as well as on the divine natured persons. The gunas are acting. But if a person is divine natured, in spite of the gunas acting on a divine natured person, the divine natured person will not unnecessarily give any trouble to a saintly person. Will never give trouble to a saintly person, actually. Even if accidentally a divine natured person gives some trouble to a saintly person, immediately the divine natured person realizes it's a big mistake on my part and he'll beg forgiveness. So this is divine nature. A demon is always against saintly persons, will never apologize to a saintly person even if he's told how he is wrong. He will never show any compassion to saintly persons, like that. So don't mix up demoniac nature with the influence of the gunas, the three modes of material nature. So Jarasandha, by nature, he is a demoniac nature person. Asuri swabhava. Daiva swabhava, asuri swabhava. And if he is always giving charity to Brahmanas, that is because of the influences sattva guna. Sattva guna influences like that. So a person may be sattvic, may be demonic nature. Or a person may be rajasic, may be a divine nature. Or tamasic, like any combination is possible in the material world. Next question. Could you kindly brief the following different kinds of bhaktas with examples? Kevala bhaktas, pradhani bhuta bhaktas, and guni bhuta bhaktas. Kevala bhakta means pure devotee. I do not know what is this pradhani bhuta bhaktas and guni bhaktas. Guni bhuta bhaktas. In any case, pure devotee examples are there in the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and Narada, and Prithu Maharaj, and the the devotees of Krishna in the 10th canto who are mentioned, Uddhava and all the cowherd boys, the Gopis, all the residents of Vrindavan, pure devotees of Krishna, Kevala Bhaktas. And there are other, of course, types of bhaktas who are actually not pure devotees but are on the path of devotional service. They gradually make progress towards developing pure devotion to Krishna. So they are at lower levels. The pure devotees are on the highest level of devotional service called Uttamadhikari, whereas there are Madhyamadhikaris and Kanishtadhikaris also. So they are also devotees, but their level is different. Next question. Please explain the Bhagavad-gita 3.18 translation meaning. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on either living being. That's explained very nicely by Prabhupada himself in the purport. I'll just read the relevant purport. Just let me open that 3.18. Yes. Now, let's try to understand discharging prescribed duties. What is the discharging prescribed duties? Now, in the scriptures, in the Vedic literature, it's explained that for a civilized human being, there are prescribed duties given in the Shastras, in the scriptures. What are prescribed duties? Typically, according to the Varnashrama Dharma system, a person is classified according to guna and karma to fall into one of four varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And according to the stage of one's development, one is classified to fall into one of four ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. Accordingly, whether one is a Grahastha or one is a Brahmachari, or one is a Brahmana, or one is a Vaishya, it doesn't matter. Prescribed duties are there in the Shastra. One has to perform his prescribed duties. Now, generally, people, when they perform prescribed duties, according to Shastras, they have a certain purpose to fulfill. What is that purpose? They want to satisfy some material desires. They want some material wealth, or they want to enjoy sense gratification in a pious way. So they have some purpose to fulfill. A self-realized soul is a person who has practiced spiritual life and made advancement to the extent that such a person has no prescribed duties to perform, neither has he any need to do some prescribed duty and thereby get success in that duty and get some result and enjoy the result by indulging in sense gratification. No, none of those things. So, a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge prescribed duties. That means a self-realized man will do his duties without expectation of anything in return. Without expectation of anything in return. So that is self-realized soul's characteristic. Now, a self-realized soul has no reason not to perform prescribed duties. There is no reason not to perform. That means a self-realized soul will engage in prescribed duties regardless of whatever the situation or the condition. So therefore, such self-realized souls are very valuable and very rare in the society. Because most people are conditioned souls. So very rare to find a realized soul, self-realized. But if somebody is self-realized, then even if they are living in this world, and they're not self-realized, then they have some purpose to fulfill in order to do some, in order to satisfy their desire for sense gratification. Whereas a self-realized person understands I have nothing to do with sense gratification. I'm not interested in it. So will not engage in any sense gratificatory activities. Nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. A self-realized person understands and realizes that Krishna is my only protector, only maintainer, only dependable person. Everybody else is dependent on Krishna. They are not independent. So how can somebody else ever protect me? How can somebody else ever provide my needs? Always I should be dependent on Krishna and his devotees for anything and everything. So that is the significance of the self-realized soul's way of behaving or acting. That is explained in the 18th verse of the 3rd chapter. Next question. What does taking pleasure and rejoicing in the self mean? Okay, that is in the 17th verse of the 3rd chapter. One who is, however, taking pleasure in the self. Taking pleasure means how do we derive happiness, by what means, by what methods. Each person has got his or her own way of, let's say, enjoying or getting happiness. Everybody has their own ways. So, taking pleasure means what is the method or means of becoming happy or getting some pleasure. That is called taking pleasure. Rejoicing in the self means for a person who self-realized, the happiness is already there in their spiritual existence. As spirit soul, Ananda is automatically there, inseparable from the soul's position or condition. Eternally we are happy in Krishna consciousness or in our self-realized state. Eternally we are happy. So there is no need of seeking pleasure outside of the self. No need of seeking pleasure like that. But in devotional service, even though a devotee has no need to seek pleasure outside of the self, still the devotee renders devotional service to Krishna outside his self for the sake of pleasing Krishna, not for his own pleasure. For the sake of pleasing Krishna, one does render service to Krishna. And that is what is explained in the Bhagavatam. Devotees always serve Krishna for the sake of pleasing Krishna. That is the nature of a devotee or a self-realized soul. Next question. In Bhagavad-gita, 3rd chapter, 12th verse, it is said, we should offer the gifts to devatas. Why is it recommending to devatas? In other place, devata worship, Krishna does not encourage. How to understand? Now, in the 12th verse of the 3rd chapter, when it is said, one who does not offer the results of his activities to the devatas in return for whatever devatas are supplying, then such a person becomes sinfully implicated. So, offering gifts to devatas means we should perform work as yajna. We should perform work as yajna, sacrifice. And sacrifice involves acknowledging the fact that we are receiving our necessities from Krishna through the agency of the devatas. The devatas are the agents of Krishna in this material world to deliver to us whatever we require when we perform our prescribed duties for our existence in this material world, etc. So therefore, offering gifts to devatas means offering sacrifice to Krishna through the devatas. That's what it means. That is not devata worship, which is worshipping a devata for some material benefit. That is not recommended in scriptures. That's not good for a person. It's now time up. I will stop here. The remaining questions I'll answer in the next exclusive question answer session next week. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.